Hi everyone, welcome back to another video. As promised, today I'm going to tell you everything that you need to know about Contiki, and I'm going to share my experiences and my overall opinion about whether or not I think it's worth it and if I think that you should do it. My credentials for this is that I have now done 2 Contikis, one in Canada and one in Europe. In this video I'm going to share with you what Contiki is and who it's for and all the information about Contiki that you need to know. I'm going to share with you both of my experiences, what it's like day to day, what the vibe is like between the people that travel on Contiki, and I'll also answer some commonly asked questions, and at the end I'll give you my overall opinion and my recommendations. So to start, I'm going to share what is Contiki, and if you already know enough about Contiki then you can skip past this part and go straight into my experiences and my opinions. But I thought I would just give a little bit of background information about what Contiki is for those people that aren't quite familiar with what it is. Essentially, Contiki is a travel group tour company for people aged between 18 to 35. They do some trips for people between the ages of 35 to 45, and they are called reunions, but I don't know much about that because I am not between those ages. But usually they're just trips for people between the ages of 18 and 35. They do multi-country trips like in Europe and in Asia usually, and then they have more region specific trips in certain countries, and they're probably a little bit slower and more in depth as well. The trip lengths vary and it can be as little as a few days, like 3 or 4 days, and then there's a trip that goes up to 45 days. So really it depends how long you want to go for. The prices vary as well. The cheapest that I could find was Ski Austria, and it was 224 Australian dollars, and it was for 4 days. And the most expensive that I could find was in South Africa. It was the South African Safari for 21 days, and it was $7,165. But the prices also can depend on the season that you go in as well. If you really want a nice Euro summer, then that's going to be a bit more expensive than if you go in the shoulder seasons. They go to every continent except for Antarctica, so I'm sure you'll be bound to find a trip that you're interested in. The group sizes also vary. They're usually between 24 to 53, but some are more smaller as well, between about 12 to 30 depending on where you go and what time you go. The things that are included are your accommodation, and this could be hostels, hotels, and sometimes special stays, which I'll explain a little bit later. It also pays for your transport around, which is usually a coach, but sometimes they will include flights, trains, or a boat. And it also pays for the trip manager and also your driver. Okay, now that you are familiar with Contiki and what it is, I'm going to share with you my experiences and I'm going to give you my honest opinions. So like I said, I have done 2 Contiki trips now. The first one I did was in Canada, and it was called the Canadian Rockies. I was on that trip for 11 days and it cost me $3,874.50 just for like the amount that I paid on the website. And then my second trip was called the European Trail. It was 16 days and it was $3,812. These are something called a modular trip, and what that essentially means is that they are smaller parts of a bigger trip. So my Canadian Rockies trip was part of the Grand Canadian, I believe it's called, and essentially that goes to East Canada and also the West. And so we did the West Coast, but there were people that were traveling and they did the entire Grand Canadian tour, so they did the East Coast and the West Coast as well. So we joined halfway through their tour, if that makes sense. Whereas with my European Trail one, I started with the group and then I finished earlier than everyone else did. But I will say that you are able to extend. There were people in my Canadian tour that just booked the East, but then I ended up meeting them on the West Coast because they ended up extending their tour. So yeah, it's very flexible like that, but there are things called modular trips, so just be wary of that when you do book. Once I booked my trips, I had access to my Contiki portal, which had all of my travel documents on there, and they also emailed our documents out to us. They sent us a hotel list and the exact itinerary for our tour. On the website, before you book, there is an itinerary that you can download, but they will send you a specific itinerary for the tour that you've booked. So we booked ours in May, but if you booked yours in a winter season, then they'll send you one that's got all the winter information and the add-ons that you can do based on winter, because obviously it'll be snowing, so maybe there are some skiing options. Not really sure. Like I said, they sent an accommodation list, and this includes what hostels, hotels, and special stays that you're going to be staying in. When I was in Canada, we stayed in only hotels and special stays, I believe, and then when we were in Europe, we stayed in hostels, a hotel, and I believe we stayed in a special stay as well. Yeah, we did. In terms of accommodation, I actually find the accommodation perfectly fine. I really enjoyed being in just a hotel and also in a hostel. I went with my brother for both trips. So in our first Canadian trip, we mostly had hotels, which was just like a double share. So because we booked together, we were together for most of the hotels. But if you are going by yourself, they are assigned for you, but they are really flexible. If you make really good friends with somebody, they will swap you and you can choose to be with somebody else a little bit later on in the trip. But just know that when you go into it, obviously if you're going by yourself, you're going to be assigned with somebody for the first couple of nights. They don't really know who you are, they don't know who you're going to be friends with. For example, when I was in Canada, like I said, I was with my brother for most of the time, but then we found out that there was a boy who was one of our friends who was all on his own, and I wanted to be with one of the girls, and so my brother went and shared a room with the boy, and then my friend came and took his place in my room. So they are really flexible about it. And then also with our special stay, I can't think of the word, but it was a really nice like a little house, and there all these little houses, and it was double story. It had a fireplace and everything, and in that one, like, it was just girls, and we got to choose our groups for that one. And then in my European tour, the trip manager kind of asked us who we wanted to be with and everything like that. So they are very, very flexible. So trust me, once you make friends, you can decide if you want to be with somebody else. And like I said, they do also send you out your exact itinerary. So I have my laptop up, and I thought I would just go through a day for you to explain what it looks like on the itinerary. So this is day 3 for us. We went from Whistler to Sun Peaks. It just tells you a little bit of information about Whistler and Sun Peaks. Sun Peaks was mostly just like a little stopover for us. There wasn't really much to do there. It tells you what meals are included. We had dinner included this night, and included experiences as well. We had a scenic drive through the Lillooet Mountains. They do stopovers through the day, like at lookouts and food places and stuff, so don't panic about that. It also says optional experiences, which are your add-ons that you can do, and you decide to do those on your tour. There'll be a sign-up sheet. Also, if you decide last minute that you want to do it, you can add on to it. So our optional experiences that we could do were the peak-to-peak gondola, which I don't believe that we did. And you can try your hand at axe throwing, which I originally said I didn't want to do, but when I got to Sun Peaks and I realized that there really wasn't much going on there, I did end up asking if I could do that. So yeah, that's what an example of the itinerary looks like. Also, I just wanted to quickly explain what day-to-day looks like on a Contiki tour. So usually your trip manager will send out a day sheet or a day itinerary, and it will consist of the next day or 2 days or so. So I just have one pulled up on my phone that we got sent. This was when we went to Krakow. We went on Monday the 12th of May. This was day 9 of our trip. This is all on our itinerary, by the way. It says that we will arrive at Auschwitz. We will get a guided tour of Auschwitz and Birkenau concentration camp, and the reason that that's in purple, I believe, is because it is included in the trip. And then we arrived in our accommodation and we had a walkabout dinner, which basically means that you get to decide where you want to have dinner, so it's not included that night. And then the next day is breakfast, which is included. It says depart on foot for the walking tour of Krakow Old Town, which I believe you don't have to do, but you can do. And when it says depart on foot, it just means that you will walk into town, because obviously the accommodation is close enough to the town, but sometimes the accommodation is a little bit further out and you will be offered a ride on the bus, so don't freak out. There is usually a way around it, but if you do miss that bus, they will not wait for you because it's an option, so they don't know who they're waiting for, so you'll have to find your own way into town. Or if you decide you want to go a little bit later, that's perfectly fine by them, but they will not wait for you. But if you are leaving to go to another city, they will usually like wait for you and try to contact you and find out where you are. Yeah, the next day it just says you have free time, so from 9 a.m. till 6:15 you can go into town. You have a walking tour option if you want, and then you just have free time until, I think this was an add-on. Yeah, this was an add-on if you wanted to do it. It's a traditional Polish evening. I believe we did go to that one, and then at night it was a free night. So sometimes there will be like a river cruise or something going on at nighttime, or even just they'll say that you're going out to a club if people want to go, like it will have that that information on there for you. A lot of people do things together, like don't think you'll just be like having free time all by yourself. They do organize for you to go out and things like that. So when I was in Canada, I think it was when we stopped over in Vernon, I don't know how to say it. There wasn't really much to do there. The dinner wasn't included. We had to pay for our own dinner, but I'm fairly certain like majority of us went out for dinner all together to the same place, and that was just messaged into our group chat. So don't panic about that. And then the next day it doesn't tell you what we're doing, but it just says what time breakfast is and what time you have to be with your bags at the coach. But yeah, that's usually what a day-to-day looks like. But if it is a drive day, then yeah, that's bags to coach and you need to be on the coach. I actually quite like the drives. The drives are usually long. Even in Canada, even though we're in just one place, the drives were fairly long. And then in Europe, obviously we're going between different countries. Usually we will sleep for the first part of the drive and then we'll stop, have a break, stretch our legs, whatever. And then usually they will like play some music or play a game like trivia or something like that. And then like half an hour before you arrive at the destination or accommodation, your trip manager will give you some information about the place that you're going to. They'll give you some history about it or some things that you can do when you're there. And then when you arrive at the accommodation, they'll give you your room assignment. If you're like in Canada, for example, when we just had hotels, you'll usually be with the same person that you're already with. But if you've decided to swap around, then they'll give you it again. When I was in Europe, we had accommodation with like 4 people, 6 people, 3 people. So like our accommodation was always changing up, but I was always with one of my closest friends. And then with timing, I've seen a couple videos with people saying that they will rush for time. I feel like maybe a couple times we'll rush for time, but we didn't really need to like get dressed up or anything for anything in particular. If we were going out, I felt like we did have a lot of time to get ready, but I wouldn't stress about the timing. And then yeah, at night time, once you get your room assignments, you usually will have an activity or a dinner, something planned. But if you don't, then that's totally up to you, and you can just organize it with the people in your room or your friends or the group chat or whatever like that. And finally, I just wanted to talk to you about the vibe and making friends and everything like that. I feel like this is the biggest concern for most people, but trust me, you're going to be fine. I feel like there was no one on the trip that didn't have a friend, and everyone is so kind. Like if they see someone that looks like they're left out, you will be asked to be included. Don't stress, you will find a person, I'm sure. When I was in Canada, I felt like I had more of a friend group, and I feel like half the group had already been traveling together for a couple of weeks, and then there was a few new people, so I felt like I talked to the new people a little bit more. But I will say, like, I definitely spoke to every single person on that trip, and I still talk to people here and there on Instagram, and people that I wasn't even that close with, like I've spoken to since I finished up. People are so lovely, so don't stress about it. It's totally fine, and I wouldn't say that it's cliquey. Like people definitely have their friend groups, but they will talk to you. Like if you talk to someone, they'll talk to you, and you're not going to feel like you don't belong and that you shouldn't be talking to these people, because I mean, firstly, you're sharing an experience, so you clearly have something in common with them traveling, and so you can talk about the day that you had when you were traveling around and what you saw. Like people are keen to talk about that, so don't worry about that. When I was in Europe, I felt like I was more friends with everyone. I went out a little bit more. I feel like I could have gone out with whatever group and I would have been comfortable. I feel like people did talk to each other a little bit more, but I was also there from the start, and we were also there for a little bit longer than my Canadian tour. And I also feel like the nightlife and everything and the things to do in Europe, there's a little bit more, so people are more keen to go out and do things. So yeah, the vibes were different, but the people were so lovely. Like please don't stress, I guarantee you'll find somebody. And then another one that I wanted to touch on is it just kind of like a party trip? It definitely does depend on what tour you do. When I was in Canada, I definitely didn't go out as much, and I feel like honestly there were only like 4 or 5 planned nights out, and then other nights like people just went out or they hung out in the rooms. And there were people that I knew and that I made friends with that didn't go out once, and they didn't want to go out. They were just there to go traveling and see the sights, which is perfectly fine. Like that's not what it's all about. And then when I was in Europe, I went out a little bit more, but the nightlife in Europe is just so much fun, even if you're not drinking or partying. But yeah, so it's really up to you. I'm not saying that like the European one is everyone wants to go out, because trust me, like there was a group that didn't really go out at all, so it's perfectly fine. It's what you want to do, and there'll always be someone either going out or not going out. And if there's no one that's not going out, it's fine. You have a night to yourself, like just chill and relax and recoup for the next day. But trust me, there will always be someone that is not going out. And then my final thing that I wanted to talk about, to touch on with friends, I have 2 pieces of advice in terms of making friends. I'm going to say the first thing that you need to do on your tour is to sit with somebody on the bus. On my first tour in Canada, all the seats were taken in terms of like there were 1 person on each seat, so you had to sit with someone because we were running late. Well, we weren't running late, we were the last ones there. and so I had to sit with somebody, and honestly it was really, really good because I got to talk to someone. I made a friend before I even arrived. And then on my second tour there were a few spaces, but I just asked a girl that I thought that I would want to be friends with if I could sit with her. She said yes. Like, honestly, imagine how that would have made her feel. She would have been really excited that somebody wanted to sit with her. And in the end I became really close friends with this girl. We ended up traveling to Wales and Spain together, and she's coming to visit me in Mexico in December, which is just crazy and so exciting. So to think that I just sat with this girl randomly on the first day and now we're like really close friends. And people throughout the trip kept asking like, how long have you and Abby been friends? And we're like, we literally met on the first day. So if that doesn't tell you, then I don't know what will. And finally, in terms of making friends, if you're going in on your own, I really want to suggest do not book single accommodation. I don't know anyone that did specifically book single accommodation, but if you like end up rooming with someone, they're probably going to become a friend. They might not be your closest friend, but at least you've got somebody from day one. So I would suggest don't book single accommodation. But if you are somewhere like Europe and you're staying mostly in hostels, you're probably going to have more than one person anyway, and single accommodation might not even be an option. But personally, I would not pay extra for single accommodation if you're there to make friends. That's all of my experience that I can think of that I need to talk to you about. If you have any questions, please let me know. I might have missed something. If you want to know something, please ask me. Like, I'm totally open to sharing with you. Now I'm going to jump into some questions that I have. I'm going to try and rapid fire these because there are a fair few in this video. It's going for a while. Where are people from? Most people on the tour are from Australia, and you'll get a fair few Kiwis as well. And then we had a few English people as well. When I was in Canada, we had a Canadian and we had someone from Singapore, but everyone else was either from Australia or New Zealand. And then in my European tour, it was mostly Australians. We had a couple of Kiwis, and we had an American and a Canadian, I think. Did we have any English? I don't really remember, but I think most people were Australian. So what's included and then what's not included. I did talk about what's included. I'll just tell you what's not included. So you need to pay for your own flights, you need to pay for your own insurance, and you need to pay for your own visas. And then again, there's those add-ons as well. But yeah, included accommodation, transport, trip manager, itinerary. Do you need to tip the guide and the driver? You do not need to. They will ask you, like they'll suggest it to you, and personally it's up to you. They recommended how much money per day. I can't remember exactly, but it's up to you how much you want to give them. Usually I just gave them the amount of cash that I had left over, but if you think they did a really, really great job, you can tip them a little bit more. If you think they did an okay job, like you can tip them less than the recommended amount. They're not gonna think poorly of you, and honestly you're never gonna have to see them again even if you decide not to tip them that much. I definitely recommend tipping both of them because they do work on tips. I believe their salary is a little bit lower and they get a lot of their money from tips, but it depends on you. Like if you think they did a terrible job, you don't have to tip them. It's up to you. How's the food? So like I said, most food that is included are your breakfast, and honestly I'm not a picky eater, so I quite enjoyed all the breakfast. I mean, free food is free food to me. That's how I've been raised in my Asian household. I thought it was perfectly fine, and then the dinners were usually buffet style and I thought it was fine as well, so I don't complain about them, but it's up to you if you're a picky eater. Is laundry included? It's not included. You will have to pay for it. Usually whatever accommodation you go to, they will say like there's laundry here, it costs this much, blah blah blah. When I was in Europe, the one time I wanted to do washing, they said that they had washing and then the washing machine was broken or whatever, so we had to go to a laundromat, but it was fine. Like it wasn't that expensive. It was close by as well, so you will have the chance to do laundry. Is the luggage limit strict? In my first tour, I don't think she even checked our luggage limit. I mean, there weren't as many people on that tour, so I feel like it didn't really matter if we were over. When I went to Europe, she did weigh my bag on the first day, but I had a backpack, so my dimensions didn't matter. I don't know what the exact dimensions are. You can go have a look, but I have seen on Facebook a couple of people have asked this question. Someone said like I was overweight and they didn't really care that much. So personally, I don't think that it matters. I think they kind of do that to scare you so that you don't bring so much stuff. I mean, if it says bring like one checked bag and then one carry-on, like just bring those 2 bags. Don't bring like 5 different bags. But if you're over by like a kilo, I wouldn't stress. I feel like it's not that big of a deal. How early are the mornings and how long are the travel days? Like I showed you before, we left at 7 or 8 most days. I believe it depends on how long the drive is going to be. I feel like in Canada our drives are a little bit shorter, maybe like 4 hours, whereas in Europe our drives are about 6, maybe sometimes 7 hours. I can't really remember, but honestly I think the bus trips were perfectly fine. Like I didn't care. If you're someone that's not interested in being in a bus for that long, then maybe Contiki isn't for you, but I didn't find a problem in it at all. But yeah, they can be long days and they can be early mornings, but I don't think 8 o'clock is that bad. I'd say most of our times that we left were about 7 or 8 a.m. Can you extend your trip? I talked about this a little bit earlier. So yes, I was asked in my European trip, like if I wanted to extend, the option was there. If I wanted to, I would say it's probably a little bit more expensive than if you were to book the whole trip at once, but yeah, you can extend it if you want to. Is it cliquey or hard to make friends? I did talk about this as well. I wouldn't say that it's cliquey. There are friendship groups. Most people are very, very friendly and you can talk to anyone, so I wouldn't say that it's hard to make friends. Okay, finally I'm going to give you my honest overall opinion and whether or not I recommend to do a Contiki. I do have a couple of questions that I'm going to answer in answering this, and then I'll just kind of sum it up all for you at the end. Did it live up to the hype? So I've known about Contiki pretty much my whole life. My mom did a Contiki when she was like 20, 21. She went to the US and I've seen photos of her trip. She's told me about it as I was growing up, and so when I was booking a tour, I mean, I was looking at Contiki or Top Deck, but I decided to go with Contiki. It is a little bit more money. Can't talk about Top Deck, don't know anything about it, but yeah, I definitely do think it lived up to the hype. Making friends on a group tour, like, it was really, really enjoyable. I do think it lived up to the hype that I've heard about my entire life. Would you do another one? Well, I've done 2 now, and I feel like considering my first one was so good and I decided to do a second one, I feel like that would mean that I would do a 3rd one. I'm hoping that the next one that I do will probably be to Asia, like Southeast Asia. Probably not for like another year or 2, but yeah, I think I will be doing another one and I will be going to Southeast Asia or something like that. What do you wish you knew before going? I think I was really nervous, especially about making friends, even though I was with my brother. If I do another one, I probably want to try and give it a go on my own. I feel like I didn't talk to my brother as much on the European tour than I did in the Canadian tour, but at least I had someone to fall back on if things didn't work out. But I wish I knew how easy it was to make friends, and also just how organized it is. The trip managers do work their butts off. They are tired, they don't sleep, and they're working even when they're there with you. What kind of person should not do a Contiki? Honestly, somebody that doesn't like to get up early, because like I said, there are very early starts. If you're somebody that kind of just wants to do your own thing and travel around and just kind of see the city and not really do much of the experiences, then I would suggest just kind of doing your own thing. I feel like it wouldn't be worth paying all that money if you just want to kind of do your own thing and do it on your own schedule. I feel like Contiki is very structured and it's all planned out for you, and you need to be following times and schedules and things like that. So if that's not your thing, probably not for you. And finally, was it worth the money? Personally, I think yes. I don't think Contiki is overly expensive. I mean, there's definitely cheaper ways that you can do it if you want to plan everything yourself. I'm a big planner and I plan things all the time. I plan trips for fun. Like, that's how much I enjoy planning trips, but I do enjoy paying Contiki to do it for me and to have a trip manager. And I really like that they're filled with information and that they can share all this information about the history and any questions that you have about the places, because I mean, I could look it up, but I'm not interested in doing that when I'm going traveling. Like, being told the information without having to think about it, I really, really enjoyed. And I personally think that the accommodation and the bus and everything like that, I think it's perfectly fine for what you pay. I will say I feel like there are some trips that are a little bit more pricier that maybe I wouldn't personally pay for. I'm not that interested in going on a South African safari and knowing that that's $7,000. Personally, I wouldn't pay that much money, but if that's something that you're interested in, maybe you can compare different tour companies and see if it's cheaper. But I think I'm happy with the amount that I paid for both of my tours, but I wouldn't pay more for something that I'm not as interested in, if that makes sense. So overall, and what you're probably dying to know and you probably figured out already, do I recommend it? And I want to say yes. If you are somebody that is just looking to go on a group tour, you want to travel around Europe, for example, but you're too scared to go on your own, or you're just not really into planning the whole trains and buses and everything all by yourself, then I suggest going on a Contiki. I definitely think a lot of people go on Contiki tours because they don't want to go traveling by themselves. And it's not so much like you're scared about going traveling. I personally think you have more fun when you're with other people. And like I said, the people in these tours, you're going to have something in common. You love traveling. So you are going to be able to make friends with those people and go out with those people and have fun. So personally, I think yes, I think it's definitely worth it and that I do recommend it, but it depends on what kind of person you are. But if you think that you're fine with the schedules, the waking up, whatever, then I would say definitely it's for you. I thought to back up this statement, I would just kind of wrap it up and explain to you why I definitely recommend it. I met some amazing people. After my Canadian tour, I spent a day in LA with a couple of people that we met on our tour, and then when we went to San Francisco, one of our friends from the tour was also in San Francisco that day, and we spent the day with him. And when I went to London earlier in the year, I caught up with some people that I met on my Canadian tour. And then, like I said, I went to Spain and Wales with one of my friends, and now she's coming here. So I have met some really incredible people, and like I said, I talk to these people online all the time, and we always talk about at the end of our trips, like, we're keen to do another one, and I would definitely go on a trip with these people again. I'm so excited to see these people again when I get back, and if I go overseas. And I met like a couple people in Canada and America, I would definitely catch up with them again. Like, it's amazing that you get to meet all these people from all over the world and all over Australia, but I now know that if I decide I want to go to WA or to Sydney or Melbourne, like, I have people that I can catch up with now. And yeah, it's honestly, you'll meet such amazing people. When I go to Southeast Asia, I'll probably reach out to the people that I made friends with and just be like, yo, does anyone want to come to Southeast Asia with me? Like, it's so chill. Like, you'll make friends and be able to travel anywhere. And finally, the main reason I decided to do Contiki specifically for my European tour was, yes, I was only in the places for a day or two. It was nice to be able to tick those countries off, but also decide which countries I liked enough that I want to go back. So there might be a couple countries that I was like, okay, cool, I've seen it, I've done it, I don't need to go back. But now there's a couple countries where I'm like, okay, now I want to go back for like a week and see it real in depth. So I think that's a really great thing about Contiki is, yes, it's fast paced and you don't get to see everything. You get to see the main things, the most important touristy things, and then you can decide if you want to go back another time and what countries you want to go back to. So yeah, that's the main reason why I like to do Contiki. I feel like I've been talking for a long time. I really hope this helped you, and getting to see someone's real life experience, I really hope that helps you and encourages you to book a Contiki if you're interested in doing that, or maybe you've decided, no, actually it's not for me. I just really hope that this was informative and helpful for somebody. But yeah, that's everything that I have to share with you about Contiki, about my personal experiences, and yeah, my overall honest opinion. I personally love Contiki. I'll definitely be doing another one, and I would recommend it to a friend. I would recommend it to anyone. I really do recommend doing a Contiki. I think that it's great, and you meet so many amazing people and you get to see so many beautiful things. So yeah, that's everything for this video. I really hope you enjoyed it. If you did, make sure that you subscribe because I have more videos talking about my travels. And if you have any questions, please comment them down below. I'm always open to answering any questions, and I'll give you my honest and true thoughts. But yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!